Hello everyone, welcome to the deep core where eternity interrupts routine, where the divine utterance of God extends beyond human limitation, and this is where the whisper of God becomes the compass of a company of people, becomes the compass of a generation. Once again, my name is BOBOYE, and today we stand inside a sacred tension, a disruption, a disturbance that feels inconvenient yet undeniably holy. So how do you know when God is calling you higher into something deeper, something that is not loud, something that is not even visible, heavier in glory? Now, because when God calls a man upward, it really begins with an applause. It really begins with visibility. It begins with agitation. It begins with an eternal memory in your spirit. Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5, God was telling Jeremiah, we said this in our last episode, that before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And we said that the word knew, the Hebrew for knew is yada, not surface awareness, but covenantal intimacy. That's pre-temporal recognition. So before your mother carried you, God had already contemplated you. Even before your lungs inhaled his first oxygen, your destiny had inhaled eternity. When you feel like your environment is too small for your spirit, we felt like this at any point of our lives. We felt that no, this place is too small for me. So when you feel like your environment is too small for your spirit, it may not be ambition, it may be remembrance. That discomfort you feel in the spirit, that is prophetic expansion. So now that is when the word stops informing you. When I say the word, I mean the word of God. That is when it stops informing you and the word just starts igniting something from your inside. That is why the Bible was speaking in Luke chapter 24 verse 32, when Jesus left the apostles when they were going to a particular place, and the apostles said, did not our hearts burn within us? It was not warmth, it was not something, it was not us, right? So it is ignition. So when God calls you deeper, what happens is there's this burden that the word creates in your heart. The word begins to burn in your heart differently. Every verse confronts you. Messages from the scriptures pursue you. Messages from the scriptures, certain set of scriptures feel addressed to you. That is why the Bible was speaking in 2 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 1, that in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. So heaven does not stutter. Heaven does not stutter. When God speaks destiny, what it does is that he echoes it. He echoes it. And I was speaking again in Philippians chapter 2 verse 13. He said, for it is God which worketh in you both to will first and to do. To will and to do. So what it means is desire comes before action. So when God calls you something deeper, what it does is that he rewires you into hunger. You begin to crave prayer more than popularity. You begin to crave depth more than display. You begin to crave consecration more than convenience. The Bible was speaking again in Matthew chapter 3 to 4. No, chapter 3 and 4. How that affirmation is followed by isolation. When God confirms your purpose to you, what follows is isolation. Alright, so how that Jesus was affirmed. The earthly ministry of Jesus was affirmed in Matthew chapter 3, and what follows immediately is isolation. Matthew chapter 4. Jesus was led by the Spirit. He was not abandoned. The Bible said he was led into separation. He was separated. He was led. So your identity must be tested before influence can be entrusted into your hands. All right, your identity must be trusted. All right, and warfare in the spirit is not always proof of error. Fear in the spirit is not proof of error. Sometimes it is a proof of elevation. It is a proof of elevation. Apostle Paul was speaking about great heaviness for his people in Romans chapter 9. He was speaking about the birth of a burden. Romans chapter 9, he was talking about this great heaviness that he has for his people. How that call him every time enlarges compassion. All right. Now, before you step into your platform, there is a pain that you must experience. Not physical pain, not that you begin to feel headache or you begin to feel stomach pain. So the pain is just your wilderness experience. And before influence comes intercession. The call of God is not about spotlight, as beautiful as that is. So what you must chase first is not spotlight. When you discover that God is calling you into something deeper, the call of God is first about stewardship. It's first about stewardship. That is the only disruption. If you feel your spirit is stretched, if your spirit feels stretched, if your current success feels like preparation rather than arrival, you are not lost, you are not plunged into error. What is happening is that you are being enlarged by the Spirit of God. So heaven is not trying to make you look impressive. Heaven is not trying to position you into the accolades of men. What heaven is trying to make you into is that heaven is trying to make you capable. When God calls you higher, increases capacity before visibility. I was talking about Jesus the other time in Matthew chapter 3 and chapter 4. How that his earthly ministry was first affirmed in Matthew chapter 3. And before God could announce him to the world, what God did first is that he led him into the wilderness to increase his capacity. So do not resist the disruption of the spirit. Instead, lean into it. Lean into it. Don't run away from it. Don't be like Jonah. All right. Don't resist from disruption. Don't resist from the burdens of the spirit. Lean into it, because sometimes destiny does not shout. Sometimes destiny is not loud. What destiny does sometimes is that it disturbs you. It creates a burden in your heart. It creates burning fire in your heart. This is just a charge for you to choose alignment before applause. When you begin to perceive the call of God in your life. When I say the call of God, I'm not only talking about ministerial calling. So there are people that God has called into marriage, into media, into politics. Go and take that government for God. Think about the likes of Joseph, Daniel, and the likes. When I say the call of God, I'm not only talking about ministerially. So when you begin to feel the call of God in your life, what you should do is that you choose alignment over applause. Because when God calls a man upward, he really begins with applause. What it begins first is agitation and wilderness experience. It begins with separation. It begins with sanctification. This is just a charge for everyone watching this video, that don't run away from disruption of the spirit, disruption of the spirit. Instead, lean into it. Lean into it. If this video has blessed you, wherever you are watching from, kindly like, subscribe, and share and invite family and friends, even your enemies. All right, love your neighbor as yourself. Right, so if your neighbor is your enemy, love them and give them this video to watch. So thank you very much for staying true, for watching to the end. On to the next episode, where we'll be diving into the mind of God, where we'll be peeping into the mind of God, and then we'll review the mind of God to you. On to the next episode. Thank you very much.